Hi everybody, welcome to the August 3rd, 2018 edition of Colorado Inside Out Postgame, a special web exclusive production here on Channel 12. I'm Dominic Dizzuti. Thank you very much for watching. Let's get a quick take on the deadline looming for ballot issues to turn in signatures. Let's talk about what might happen. Penna Cahoon from Westward, there's a couple that made a lot of news lately, Initiative 97 and everything going on with that. But there's other proposals going on out there that might make some headlines if they in fact make the ballot. What do you think?
I think we're going to take a lot of time filling out our ballots this year because the gubernatorial election is going to be interesting, but there are so many issues. We've got the transportation issue, and not just one, but two. We have one from David's esteemed institution, the Independence Institute, that might very well make the ballot, fix our damn roads. Then we've got the Chamber of Commerce one being pushed. We've got the fracking, if 97 makes it, that's going to be, I think, the hot topic. 108, the Colorado Farm Bureau is today driving in farmers, tractors, you name it. That's a private property issue, and that'll be up there. We have in Denver proper, we've got a question on how many ballot signatures you're going to need, and also the Caring for Colorado, which I have to say I think will be an early win, which is putting some money, extra tax money, towards mental health. And we've also got the parks. Like, it would be 1% for parks. And is that justified? That's a big chunk of change.
I have to admit, as a debate producer, I'm totally biased in this one. The more ballot issues, the better, because it's more debates to offer, and they're always interesting. Speaking of always interesting, David Kopel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. Do you think there are any, it seems to me, and maybe I'm wrong here, that most everyone's going for an initiative so that it's statutory, not amendment, which can be adjusted by the legislature at a later date, but easier to pass in Colorado, meaning just the 50% majority. Do you see any surprises or big headlines as we talk about this next week once we see who's finally qualified?
Well, we may not see who's finally qualified next week. The petitions are due on Monday, but then the Secretary of State has to verify the signatures, and they go through a process where they take some and they say, okay, what percentage of your signatures are valid, and at a certain point they can say, oh, you're so strong, we don't need to look at every single one. Others, where you may have a high failure rate on those signatures, people signed the wrong name or the wrong address or whatever, they can take longer to count. So we may not know immediately. The mental health one that Patty mentioned as a Denver initiative, I think that's a very good idea. The problem in government spending is a lot of the spending gets directed to the powerful interests, the government employee unions and things like that, and people who have mental health problems are not exactly one of the big lobbies that influences the city council or the legislature. So this is the voters saying, look, this is where we really need a safety net for people, and it's obviously in Colorado, as in Denver and a lot of other places, the safety net isn't comprehensive or strong enough yet. The oil and gas industry's Don't Sign campaign, I think, is being effective. Whether it'll be effective enough to keep their opposed initiative off the ballot or not, but certainly at the Independence Institute, where we're gathering something for totally different, just that the legislature should spend the money it already has on fixing our roads. It's been harming that, and the oil and gas people knew that their Don't Sign thing, even though they were dropping the bomb in the direction of the anti-fracking people, it would cause collateral damage on everybody else. And for the people who say, oh, well, I don't want to live near something that's fracking, if you buy something on Blake Street in Lodo, don't complain. There's too much baseball around, and there's all this cheering, and it makes me hard for me to go to sleep at 7:30 at night. You bought next to it, and if you buy a house that is next to somebody with existing oil and gas rights, you don't get to say stop doing that. Just like if somebody else moves into a house with 9 kids there and is like, oh, there's all these children's noises around. Well, you chose to buy knowing the situation, and if they don't want oil and gas half a mile from them, then do things proper constitutionally, as Interior Secretary Salazar said. Pay people just compensation for the taking of their property rights.
Eric Sonneman, political analyst, I think we're seeing that ballot issues can spur emotional responses at any point. Do you think we're going to see one of these, I guess, and again, I say this biased as debate producer, and you have been kind enough to join me in a lot of these debates. The good old days when we had 13, 14, at least 12 ballot issues on a ballot, I call them good old days. I'm not sure everyone else would think that way. Do you see one of those coming this year?
Yeah, I don't know if we have a record number. I don't know if we get to a dozen or more. But in terms of the one we have, the ones we are going to have, they're going to be some high stakes and high dollar ones. When I look at this fall, and with all the money Jared Polis is planning to spend on his campaign, and Walker Stapleton is, Lord knows, not going to be underfunded, you have that race between Kaufman and Jason Crow out in the 6th CD where money will flow. You have a hot attorney general's race here between George Brockler and Phil Weiser. Both of them will have their own money plus national money coming in here with independent expenditures. And all of that might get washed away by some of these ballot issue expenditures. If the fracking one, 97, makes it, I mean, just start punching that cash register, because you have no idea how much money's going to get spent on it. Patty had a good list, but I'd add a few to her list. On top of the ones Patty mentioned, there's likely to be an education tax on the ballot. Those petitions were turned in a few weeks ago. I don't know that they've been certified yet, but they looked pretty strong in terms of the number of signatures they had. So you're going to have 2 road tax measures potentially, an education tax measure. You'd like to think each of them stand on their own, but there has to be some competition between them to the extent that taxpayers regard their dollars as somewhat finite. The other one that I find, if it makes it, is going to be very intriguing, is a healthcare billing transparency question, to require hospitals to be a heck of a lot more transparent in terms of their master charge sheet and their whole billing procedure. The hospital industry will spend unlimited funds to defeat it, if that makes the ballot, but there's going to be a superficial appeal to that for a whole lot of voters, so that will be another hot one. Just to wrap it up, we'll know more in a week, maybe 2 weeks, of what is on the ballot, but there will be plenty of meat. There'll be a little bit of fluff. David on the show mentioned a silly proposition to outlaw smartphone sales to kids under 13. I think families might be able to regulate that without government getting involved. So there might be some wild and wacky ones, but there will be plenty of meat on the ballot here to go along with the candidates.
Craig Silverman rounds out the panel, attorney with Silverman & Olivas, also a talk show host on 710 KUS every Saturday morning. Craig, it sounds like you're going to have a lot of fodder on the talk show with these ballot issues. You looking forward to a long list?
Not particularly. Some are more exciting than others. I have to say, it might sound un-American, but this whole petitioning process, which is right there in the Constitution, just seems antiquated. Anything where you're signing your name to some stranger about something you're reading at a gas station. And for the first time when I'm pumping my gas, people are coming up to me, and then you have counter-protesters, probably at gas stations. People have encountered that. You're just trying to get your gas, and is this really democracy? And then to put the burden on the citizen to try to understand all the nuances of oil and gas or hospital fees or this or that, I mean, that would require some real study. You can learn a lot by watching Channel 12, but it's generally going to be the marketing and the money behind it. And to me, 97 is real interesting because it's really harsh on oil and gas, and you would think that Jared Polis would want 97 on the ballot, but he says no, he doesn't want it. It's sort of like pro-lifers who didn't like the personhood amendment because they say, well, tell us why. Isn't this what you've always wanted? But I think Jared Polis is worried about how much more could be coming to Colorado to defeat 97 and, by extension, Jared Polis.
And see, I think if anyone would be used to getting autograph seekers at gas stations, it'd be you, Craig.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
But it could be different. Who knows? That's all the time we have for CIO Postgame this week. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think. For everyone here at CPT12.org, I'm Dominic Dizzuti. Thanks for watching.